Hello, my name is Steve, and this is my racing game development log. And yeah, I'm making a racing game with Unity. And what I'm working on right now is finishing this island. So at this point, you can see that I have a lot of walls and fences laid out, a lot of different areas laid out, vegetation, buildings, some construction areas, a few different landmarks, and a pretty decent sized road network. I have an industrial area. So at this point, this island is pretty much done. The blockout phase is finished. I have all of the drivable areas defined. There's walls in most of the places that need them. I still want to go through and put up some more road barriers in a few different places, but at this point that's all kind of detail work. So what I've been working on since finishing that was starting on the props. The first thing that I want to lay out is the lighting for the city. So I'm going to need to lay out street lights throughout this city and traffic lights. The first one in particular is the street light that I'm working on. And let's go ahead and select these. So basically what I've set up here is a bunch of street lights with some volumetric, oops, there we go. That looks much better. So I set up a bunch of street lights with some volumetric beams on them. They basically all have spotlights. There's a rigid body attached to them, so they're able to be knocked over by the player vehicle. When they get knocked over, they turn off. Depending on how close the player vehicle is to these lights, that determines if they're rendering shadows or not. They're also set up with an LOD type system, which disables the scripts on them if the mesh is not visible to the player. And yeah, that's basically what I've been working on setting up. So this street that we're on here is the only street that's set up with lights on both sides. And the purpose for that is to be a stress test. So there are some lights in some other areas, like around that street, but we're going to go ahead and jump into the last build that I made and check out this street. So let me go ahead and launch that. And as I'm launching that, I need to close Unity. For some reason, if I run a build and have Unity open at the same time, it's pretty bad performance-wise. Like, there's just a lot of stutter in the video. So waiting for Unity to close. There we go. Okay, so we're in the build. Let's go ahead and load into the scene. Then we could check it out and see what these streetlights look like. And we could drive into them too and see what they look like when they crash. So I'm pretty much right at that 60 frame limit. Sometimes I'm dipping below it a little bit. And that's because I increased the vegetation a little bit. I still want to play with it. I think I could find a way to balance it out the right way. So this street, you might remember, looked pretty bare before. Also, there's no sidewalks anymore. What I have is just the terrain underneath, and I'm painting it as needed. You might be able to see some green patches there. There's a lot of spots that I need to improve, but last time we were here, we couldn't go through this place. Now there's like some alleyways and parking lots for the buildings, and yeah, that was just something that I was working on finishing. And now that for the most part it's finished, I need to add props to the scene. So like I said, the first thing that I picked was these streetlights, and it makes a huge difference. You can see the shadow underneath the car, the shadow on the back end of the car. We got the volumetric beams going on. I think they might be a little too intense right now. And as they're driving pretty fast. You get some cool effects when you're driving under the lights. And that was basically what I was going for. So in the back of my mind, I envision the midnight streets, some cool looking street lights, a lot of effects, a lot of reflection. I'm really happy with the way that everything looks with, like, from a lighting perspective. I mean, obviously I want to tweak it a lot, but seeing the real-time reflection probe on the car, the shadows underneath the car and on the car's body, the variation between lights as you go in and out from under the lights, that's pretty cool. So the way these lights work for performance is that each light has a script on it, and it's basically running some logic in an update loop. And depending on the player's distance from that light, it's either going to enable or disable shadows. And if the mesh is not visible at all, it just disables the light, the volume light, and all of that good stuff. And also, so the meshes are currently, they all have a rigid body on them, and it's currently set to be disabled, and the rigid body is actually enabled when there's a trigger. So I just triggered that collider, and the script on it after it was triggered is basically going to enable the rigid body, and then there's a little timer in there. After the rigid body has been enabled, once the model stops moving, once there's no more velocity, it disables all of the colliders on that. And basically it's still not a static mesh, but at this point it's disabled. And yeah, so let's just drive around and drive into the lights, kind of pretend they're bowling pins, drive into them. Actually, you know what? I think I want to make a game where we just drive into streetlights. I think that's what I'm going to do next. Actually, I'm going to do that now instead of this game. Let me know what you think about that. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.